What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another Pitching Ninja's filthiest pitches of the day. Remember, before we get to those pitches, hit that subscribe button. Be a part of the biggest and best baseball community on YouTube. And never miss out on the awesome content we put out every day. And now, without further ado, here are my filthiest pitches of the day. I'm going to start with Brayan Bello, who had 5 Ks in 6 innings, giving up only 2 runs. He had this changeup and fastball. He faced off against Dylan Lee, who was the opener, and had 3 Ks in 2 2/3 innings, giving up no runs, and had these nasty sliders. Rich Hill, aka Dick Mountain, had these sick breaking balls. This one had 23 inches of horizontal break. And I did this overlay of 2 different breaking balls with 2 different shapes, and you can see how he uses different arm angles to create those shapes. And because you're part of Ninja Nation, here's Dick Mountain's curveball grip. And you can see how he changes the position of baseball to change the shape of his curveball.
I used to throw it with the horseshoe. Can you see that? So with the horseshoe facing towards my fingers. So I used to throw it like that, right? But now I throw it with the horseshoe facing away. And the reason being is because if you look at the seams, it has like the appearance that it comes up, right? As opposed to the other way, if I had it here, it almost goes, it gets that feeling like it's going down. So having the ball, it just feels like I get my fingertip on that little upswing of the seams.
You
can see my fingers here because there's a space in between.
Yep.
So I'll adjust sometimes. I'll come back out here, and then I'll kind of choke it sometimes. And that's just a change. Again, if I want it to come out more straight and then down.
Dean Kramer had these fastballs, including this 2-seamer, and these sweepers on his way to 4 strikeouts and 6 scoreless innings. Seth Lugo had 5 Ks in 6 innings, giving up only 2 runs, and had these buzzsaw curveballs with 3,383 RPMs and 3,389 RPMs. And he paired that with an elevated fastball, which goes really well with those curveballs. To show you why it goes really well, here's an overlay of a really elevated fastball with his high spin curveball. It goes 12-6. And you can see how those pitches go in opposite directions. And as a hitter, because that curveball has such high RPMs and that fastball's coming at you pretty fast, you have to make a quick decision, and sometimes they end up swinging at pitches way out of the zone. Lugo battled Pablo Lopez, who had 8 Ks in 6 innings, giving up only 1 run, had these changeups, these sweepers, including this backdoor sweeper, and his fastball. Justin Steele had these cutting fastballs on his way to 3 strikeouts in 6 innings. He outdueled Jordan Montgomery, who had 3 Ks in 5 innings, but he gave up 6 runs, and he had this inside 2-seamer. Johnny Brito had these nasty changeups and 3 Ks in 4 1/3 innings, giving up 2 runs. Brad Keller had these wicked breaking balls that had 4 Ks in 5 innings, giving up only 1 run. Dane Dunning had this painted 2-seamer and gave up 2 runs in 6 innings with 5 strikeouts. He battled Luis Castillo, who had 9 Ks in 5 innings, giving up 3 earned runs, and had these vicious sliders and overpowering fastballs. And of course, his fist pump K-strut, which I love. Merrill Kelly had his mix of changeups and sinkers, and had 6 Ks in 6 innings, giving up 4 runs. And he faced off against Edward Cabrera, who had 5 Ks in 3 1/3 innings, giving up 4 runs. But the box score really doesn't tell a story of how filthy Cabrera was. He had this hammer curveball, and then his changeups up to 95 miles an hour. Here's a 94-mile-an-hour changeup, and you can see the grip here. And he also threw these back-to-back 95-mile-an-hour changeups to Josh Rojas. 95-mile-an-hour changeups are absolutely ridiculous, and you can see by Josh Rojas' face, he agrees. Eduardo Rodriguez was great again yesterday, with 8 Ks and 7 scoreless innings, giving up only 4 hits. He had this mix of fastballs and changeups, and his ERA this season is now 1.57. Josiah Gray had 3 Ks in 7 innings, giving up only 2 runs, and had this slider for a sword. Justin Verlander had these overpowering fastballs. his nasty changeup, and filthy curveballs, and got a sword on this curveball. And here's an overlay of his 97-mile-an-hour fastball with an 81-mile-an-hour curveball, and you can see why those two pitches pair really well together. He had 7 strikeouts in 7 innings, gave up only 2 hits and 1 run. He dueled Hunter Green, who had 4 Ks in 5 1/3 innings, giving up 2 runs, and had this painted fastball and these sliders. Clayton Kershaw had 8 Ks in 7 innings with no walks and giving up only 1 run. Kershaw had this painted fastball and was up to 93 on his heater. And he also had these vicious sliders. Here's an overlay of his slider and fastball, and you can see why pairing that slider with his fastball is so tough on hitters. There's not a huge velo difference, but there's a big difference in movement. It's tough to pick up, and when you think you're swinging at a fastball, you get a slider instead and whiff. Kershaw also threw an amazing 76% strikes in this game. Kershaw outdueled Wade Miley, who had 3 Ks in 5 innings but gave up 7 runs and had this changeup and slider. Cristian Javier had this mix of overpowering fastballs and sliders and had 11 Ks in 6 innings, giving up only 2 runs. One of the more dominant performances from yesterday. And he outdueled Griffin Canning, who had 3 Ks in 3 2/3 innings, but gave up 5 runs and had this slider. In the premier pitching matchup yesterday, Zach Wheeler had 7 Ks in 7 innings, giving up only 1 run on 3 hits, and had these filthy sweepers and curveballs. And he went up against yesterday's filthiest starting pitcher of the day, Kevin Gausman, who had 6 scoreless innings with 9 Ks, nice, and gave up only 3 hits. He had this blazing fastball up to 98 miles an hour, and of course, his disgusting splitters. Gausman has an amazing 49.7% whiff rate on his splitter, and he throws that splitter about 40% of the time, which is a lot of whiffs. And here's a 3-pitch overlay of Gausman's fastball, slider, and splitter, all from 1 at bat. You can see how well he repeats his mechanics and how he creates that triangle of death with those 3 pitches. Now onto my filthiest relievers. Brian Abreu had this nasty slider and fastball. Amir Garrett had these sliders that were so disgusting they'll make you puke. Too soon? Danny Coulombe had these wicked breaking balls, including this one that got the D helmet. Jimmy Herget, the human glitch, was back and had these curveballs. Craig Kimbrell had this overpowering heat. Josh Hader dominated with these fastballs and sliders. Hader's stuff gets on you so quickly and his mechanics are so funky, you may end up swinging at a fastball over your head. Adam Ottavino had this nasty 2-seamer with 18 inches of run. Pierce Johnson had these curveballs. David Robertson had these nasty cutters. Sir Anthony Dominguez had this fastball and slider. AJ Puck had these overpowering fastballs. Will Smith had these dirty sliders. Justin Lawrence had these frisbee sweepers, and here's a 2-seamer and sweeper overlay, and you can see why he's been one of the filthiest relievers all season. Excellent trade bait for the Rockies. Yennier Cano, who makes this list every day, had these wicked changeups. And my filthiest relievers from yesterday, it's a tie. We have Jhoan Duran with this 101-mile-an-hour splinker. Yes, this is basically a splitter at 100.8 miles an hour. I know it is a ball, but let's not lose sight of the fact that this is 100.8 miles an hour on a splitter. This is ungodly. And speaking of ungodly, Duran also had these hammer curveballs. This stuff is just a cheat code. And don't forget his fastball tops out at 104. And Duran tied with yesterday's co-filthiest reliever, Kenley Jansen, who got his 400th career save. And I'll give him a ninja round of applause. But he doesn't get co-filthiest reliever just because of that career milestone. He was touching 99 miles an hour, which is harder than even peak Kenley Jansen, and also had this vicious slider to end the game. And now, my pitching ninja moment of zen. This went from a beer run to a beer slip and fall really fast. What is up, everybody? My picks of the day today are 3-leg parlay. I'm going to start out with Drew Rasmussen for 5 Ks or more, then take Kodai Senga for 6 Ks or more, top it off with Yu Darvish for 7 Ks or more. What would your picks of the day be?